The heat of Las Vegas was intense, even at night. Upon entering the Mirage, the first thing I noticed was the peculiar smell, a mix of cigarette smoke and something undefined, almost sweet. The hotel lobby was grand, but there was a darkness that lingered in the air, as if the place itself was breathing. The polished marble floor reflected the bright lights of the chandeliers, but the shadows seemed deeper and more unsettling. I, Edward, a British journalist in search of ghost stories, couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to step into a narrative that would surpass any fiction. As I walked towards the front desk, a receptionist with a piercing gaze awaited me. His eyes were a deep blue, almost hypnotic, and there was an enigmatic expression on his face, as if he knew something I had yet to uncover. "Welcome to the Mirage, sir. May I assist you?" His voice was smooth, but there was a note of warning that I couldn't ignore. "Yes, please. I have a reservation," I replied, trying to maintain my composure. While he typed away on the computer, I couldn't help but observe the hotel's decor. The walls were adorned with portraits that seemed to have been taken from another era, images of guests who, judging by their expressions, appeared lost in their thoughts, or perhaps in their own nightmares. "You're here for a story, aren't you?" The receptionist interrupted my musings. "Many come seeking inspiration, but not all return." He winked and a shiver ran down my spine. What did he know about me? Stay alert to what happens around you. The hotel has a peculiar way of retaining its stories. "Stories? What do you mean?" I questioned, but he merely smiled enigmatically, handing me the room key. "Just enjoy your stay, sir, and remember, the past is not something you can ignore." I ascended to my room, but the feeling of being watched did not leave me. The energy of the place was dense, as if I were being pulled into something much larger. When I finally entered the room, the decor was typical of a luxury hotel, but something felt off. The light flickered, as if it wanted to go out. I looked out the window and saw the strip of Las Vegas shining, but the view did not bring me comfort. Something was about to happen. Meanwhile, on another floor, Clara, a visual artist already staying at the hotel, was trying to find inspiration for her new piece. Sitting in front of her canvas, her brushstrokes flowed, but her mind was restless. Suddenly, soft whispers began to echo in her room, as if voices from another time were trying to communicate. "Who's there?" she asked, standing up with her heart racing. Silence enveloped her, but the feeling of not being alone was palpable. Curiosity overcame her fear, and she decided to investigate. At the same time, I was in the hotel bar, trying to distract myself with a whiskey. The murmurs around me were a blend of laughter and low conversations, but something caught my attention. Two guests in a corner were discussing mysterious disappearances that had occurred over the past decades. "Did you know that several people have vanished here? The hotel has a dark history," one of them said conspiratorially. The other looked around, as if afraid of being overheard. "They say some souls never left this place." Hearing that made my heart race. What more could I uncover about the hotel's past? As a journalist, curiosity had always been my greatest ally, but now it felt like a double-edged sword. The noise of the conversation mixed with my thoughts, and it was then that I decided to find Clara. Perhaps she knew something. As I walked through the corridors, a locked door caught my attention. It was a plain door, but there was something enigmatic about it that drew me in. I felt an inexplicable force, as if being pulled closer. What could be behind that door? The echo of whispers accompanied me, and a chill ran down my spine. Something told me that the truth about the hotel and its secrets was about to be revealed. The locked door creaked open with a haunting sound, as if the hotel was protesting against the intrusion. The key I found under the bedside table, forgotten and dusty, seemed to beckon me. The ballroom was shrouded in a melancholic gloom, illuminated only by a beam of light streaming through a broken window. It was as if time had stopped there, and shadows danced around me. The walls were adorned with black and white photos of guests who appeared to have stepped out of an old movie. Fixed gazes, frozen smiles, and the unsettling sensation that they were watching me. A chill ran down my spine. "Edward, you have to see this," I called, my voice echoing in the emptiness of the hall. He appeared right behind me, his eyes widening as he took in the scene. "What is this? A museum of horrors?" he said, a nervous smile failing to hide his discomfort. He walked over to one of the photos, where a group of people posed at what seemed to be a glorious event, but there was something sinister about their smiles. "Look, some of these photos have dates written in the corner." I pointed to one, where a woman in an elegant dress looked more alive than the others. "This one is from 1923. And this one." Edward turned to another photo, and the date made my heart race. 1933. It's like they're trapped in this place, just like us. "This is madness," I murmured, feeling restless. Why did these people never leave? Before Edward could answer, something caught our attention. A table in the corner, covered with a stained cloth, seemed to have something underneath. "Let's see what's there," I suggested, curiosity overcoming fear. I lifted the cloth and found a dusty journal, its yellowed pages seeming to be waiting for us. "A journal? This could give us some clues," Edward said, pulling it closer. He started to flip through the pages, and soon his eyes widened. "Look at this, Clara. It's from a guest who disappeared in 1953. Read it," I urged, my anxiety rising. He began to read aloud, and the words danced in the air, bringing to light the fears and secrets the hotel concealed. "I feel like I'm being watched. At night, I hear whispers calling my name. Each day, the feeling that I'm not alone intensifies. The last time I looked out the window, I saw a shadowy figure." Edward's voice trembled as he read. "This is horrible," I murmured, feeling a knot form in my stomach. This woman knew something was wrong. "And it seems she wasn't the only one," Edward continued, his hands trembling slightly. "There are mentions of strange events happening every 10 years. Disappearances, deaths." At that moment, we heard footsteps in the hallway. My heart raced, and our heads turned simultaneously toward the door. David appeared, his expression worried. "What are you doing here? This place is dangerous," he said, his voice low but filled with urgency. "We're trying to find out what happened to the missing guests," I replied, while Edward showed the journal to David. "You won't believe what we found." David took the journal and began flipping through it, his expression growing darker. "You shouldn't be here. The hotel has a macabre history, and it's not just about disappearances. The people who come here, well, they don't usually leave." "We need to know more," I insisted, feeling we were closer to the truth than ever. "We can find a way to escape." "If there is a way," David interrupted, his eyes fixed on the photos on the wall. "These images, it's like they're watching us." I swallowed hard, realizing his photos seemed to move, their expressions changing, as if the hall itself was alive. A shiver ran down my spine. "What do we do now?" I asked, feeling the weight of responsibility on our shoulders. "We have to investigate more," David decided, his voice firm. "We can't let this story consume us too." And so together, we resolved not to back down. As the past watched us, we were determined to confront whatever the hotel was hiding. The feeling of déjà vu washed over me as we examined the black and white photos covering the walls of the old ballroom. It was as if each image was trying to tell me a story I couldn't quite grasp. Edward, Clara, and I had gathered around one of the oldest photos where a group of people smiled in front of the hotel. The date written in the corner of the image was exactly 30 years ago. "Look at this," Edward said, pointing to a woman in the photo. "She looks so much like you, Clara." Clara furrowed her brow, stepping closer to the image. "It's true, it's like I've seen that face before. But it can't be, right?" Her voice carried a mix of astonishment and confusion. "It could just be a coincidence," I said, trying to calm her. But deep down, a wave of unease was growing within me. The atmosphere in that hall seemed to vibrate with strange energy, as if the very space was alive and watching us. Our conversation was interrupted by a loud clap of thunder from outside. The storm that had seemed distant was now rapidly approaching, and soon the hotel lights began to flicker. One by one, the beams of light went out, and in a matter of seconds, we were plunged into total darkness. "Edward? Clara?" I called out, but my voice sounded distant, as if it too were being swallowed by the darkness. The silence was replaced by indistinct whispers that seemed to come from all around. They were soft, almost like laughter, but carried a disturbing malice. "We need to get out of here," Clara shouted, her voice now tinged with panic. "I'm starting to get really scared." "Calm down, let's move together," Edward said, his hand searching for hers. "I think the bar should be more lit. We can meet up with other guests there." We agreed and began to move slowly toward the door of the hall. Each step felt heavier than the last. The whispers grew louder, and I could sense the presence of something or someone watching us. As we crossed through the door, a figure appeared before us. It was a specter, shrouded in shadows and mystery, with a vacant gaze that seemed to pierce our souls. My heart raced in my chest, and without thinking, I pulled Clara and Edward with me as we ran wildly down the corridor. "Where are we going?" Clara screamed, her voice filled with despair. "To the bar, quickly," I replied, not looking back. The corridor was turning into a maze, and every step seemed to take us deeper into the hotel's darkness. The laughter, now louder and closer, echoed in our ears, making my stomach churn. Finally, we reached the bar, which, to our surprise, was filled with guests who also appeared terrified. Everyone exchanged nervous glances, and the atmosphere of panic was palpable. "What's happening?" a man asked, his voice trembling. "No one can get out?" The lights went out, and I saw something. "It was the same for us," Edward said, now calmer but clearly worried. "We're trapped in something we can't understand. We need to unite and figure out what's going on." The tension in the room increased as guests began sharing stories of strange experiences they'd had in the past few hours. I looked around, searching for a sign of safety, but fear seemed to hang over all of us like a dark cloud. "Someone needs to go to the reception and find the manager," I suggested, feeling it was a necessary action. "We need to find out if there's any way out." "I'll go," Clara offered, her determination visible despite the fear still consuming her. "However, we're not alone," I murmured, glancing at the door we had passed through. The ghostly figure that had chased us in the darkness was still present in my mind, and I knew the real battle was just beginning. The hotel, with all its secrets, wouldn't let us escape so easily. The siren echoed through the hotel, the piercing sound reverberating against the ornate walls. My heart raced as I saw the other guests, those pale and terrified faces, gathering in one corner of the lobby. David, Clara, and I exchanged glances, a mix of confusion and fear. What was happening? What had unfolded in the shadows of this place? "We need to unite," David suggested, his voice firm, though I could see the worry in his eyes. "Whatever it is, we need to find out what's going on here." "And how are we going to do that?" Clara asked, her tone laced with contained despair. "We're trapped in this nightmare, and now this?" She pointed to the hotel door, which slammed shut with a bang, as if the building itself was closing in on us. "Maybe we should find someone who knows more about the hotel," I proposed, the idea forming in my mind. "Someone who can help us understand what's happening." David's eyes lit up, and he nodded. "Yes, let's look for the receptionist. He seems to know more than he's letting on." As we moved, the atmosphere in the hotel became even more oppressive. The lights flickered, and the air felt heavy, charged with a strange energy. As we crossed the lobby, we heard murmurs, whispered stories among the guests about those who had disappeared, about the curse that plagued the hotel every 3 decades. "Did you hear what happened to the Smith family?" a nearby woman commented, her voice trembling. "They disappeared without a trace, and they say their laughter can be heard at night." The thought that we might be next made me shudder. "Come on, we need to move," David said, pulling Clara and me toward the reception desk. But just before we could reach it, the siren stopped abruptly, and a heavy silence settled in. The silence was so deep that I could hear my own heartbeat. A chill ran down my spine. We arrived at the desk and found the receptionist, his gaze still enigmatic. "What's happening?" David asked, his voice resonating with a tone of authority that felt somewhat forced. "Why was the siren sounding? You shouldn't be here," the receptionist replies, his voice soft yet laden with an inexplicable weight. "This hotel holds secrets that cannot be easily revealed." "Secrets? What do you mean?" Clara questions, frustration evident in her tone. "We're in danger. We need to know how to get out of here." The receptionist watches us, his dark eyes seeming to penetrate our souls. "There are stories that have never been told, guests who have never left this place, and now you are tied to those stories. To escape, you must confront what you fear, each one of you." "What do you mean?" I asked, discomfort growing in my chest. "What do we need to confront?" "Each of you carries a burden, a guilt, an unspoken truth. Only by facing it can you break the cycle." He leans forward, his expression serious. But be careful. Some truths are harder to confront than others. The tension in the air becomes palpable. What did he mean? What was it in our past that could bind us to this place? I didn't know, but I felt that the answer was closer than I imagined. Suddenly, the phone behind the counter rings, a shrill sound cutting through the silence. The receptionist picks it up, and his expression shifts to one of concern. "What do you mean the line is dead?" he murmurs, looking at us with a mix of fear and desperation. "I need to go." "Wait, we can't stay here without knowing what to do." I shout, but he has already disappeared through a door in the back, leaving us alone in a growing nightmare. "We need to find a way out," David says, his determination renewed. "If he's right, we need to discover what truths we need to face." Clara shakes her head, her gaze distant and worried. "But what if the truth is something we can't bear? What if we get lost on this journey?" Her words hang in the air like a shadow. What more could we uncover about ourselves in this cursed place? Fear settles in my stomach, but urgency pushes us to move forward. Every step we took led us deeper into the mystery, closer to the truth that was about to be revealed. I woke from a deep nightmare, my heart racing and my mind confused. The atmosphere around me was heavy, as if the walls were witnessing something I couldn't comprehend. The musty smell and the distant sound of a clock ticking echoed in the strange room where I found myself. As I looked around, I realized I was surrounded by objects left behind by other missing guests. Dusty clothes, worn shoes, and even a child's abandoned toy, all so heavy with untold stories. A chill ran down my spine, as if the souls of those who had been here still lingered, waiting for something. "Where am I?" I murmured to myself, my voice barely escaping my lips. I tried to open the door, but it was locked. A growing sense of despair began to take hold of me. "Clara? Clara!" Edward's voice echoed from the other side of the door, bringing a small relief, but also a warning that something was very wrong. "I'm here! I'm trapped!" I shouted, banging my hand on the door. His response was immediate, a series of desperate knocks. "We'll find a way to open this." While he and David struggled desperately, my mind began to wander. I recalled the vision I had before I fainted, distorted images of a past that wasn't mine, but felt so real. I saw familiar and unfamiliar faces, all condemned to relive the same night, the same tragedy. A sense of déjà vu enveloped me, and I realized that we were all connected, not just by fear, but by a shared fate. Finally, after considerable effort, the door swung open. Edward and David stood there, panting and pale-faced, but the determination in their eyes was evident. "Clara, are you okay?" Edward asked, concern clear in his voice. I don't know," I replied, trying to organize my thoughts. "I had a vision, something about this hotel, and about us." "The vision?" David asked, crossing his arms in a protective gesture. "What did you see?" I took a deep breath, trying to articulate the images still dancing in my mind. People. Missing. They were all here, in this place, and it seems we are doomed to live the same night over and over. We need to get out of here. Edward looked at David, a mutual understanding passing between them. "We need to find out more about what happened here. If there's a hidden basement, perhaps we can find clues about those rituals we mentioned earlier," he suggested, his voice firm, despite the fear surrounding us. We headed toward a staircase that seemed to stretch down to the basement. Each step we took made the air feel denser, and the echo of our feet on the creaking wooden floor seemed to summon something from the past. As we reached the basement, darkness enveloped us like a cloak. A rustic altar, covered in melted candles and strange symbols, dominated the space. The atmosphere exuded a sense of horror, as if we were treading on a graveyard of unresolved memories. "Look at this," David pointed to a dusty notebook on the altar. "This could be someone's diary from when they were here." Edward flipped through the pages, each line revealing stories of despair and pain. They were trying to break free, but something held them back. We need to understand what happened, or we'll become just another part of this tragic story. The weight of the truth began to settle among us. I looked at them, the determination in their eyes reflecting my own. "We need to face this together," I said, my voice steady. "We have to figure out how to break this cycle." As we spoke, a soft whisper began to spread through the basement, as if the voices of the departed guests were warning us. A A sense of urgency washed over us, and we knew we were racing against time. The hotel wasn't just an old building. It was a living entity, feeding on our fears and secrets. We needed to find a way out before it was too late. The tension in the air was palpable as my companions, Edward and Clara, and I made our way to the hotel lobby, determined to confront the enigmatic receptionist. The heavy atmosphere, as if the hotel itself were watching us, intensified my nerves. Clara looked pale, but her eyes shone with determination. Edward, on the other hand, kept his gaze sharp, as if every shadow might hide a secret. "Let's put an end to this once and for all," I declared, trying to project confidence. Edward nodded, his expression resolute. We crossed the lobby, where the dim light from the chandelier flickered, as if it were aware of our quest. The receptionist was there, as always, behind the counter, his enigmatic smile unchanged even in the face of our apparent determination. "You again," he said, his voice smooth and hypnotic. "What do you wish to know?" "We want to know the truth about this place," Edward exclaimed, his voice echoing with a mix of anger and fear. "We know this hotel harbors dark secrets. What is going on here?" The receptionist tilted his head as if considering our words. "The truth? The truth is a heavy burden for most souls. Are you ready to face it?" "We're ready," I affirmed, my determination growing, although a part of me hesitated. "We want to understand why we're trapped here." He took a deep breath, his gaze distant, as if recalling ancient memories. "This hotel is a prison, a labyrinth of pain and regret. Each of you carries a burden, a shadow that haunts you. To break the cycle, you must confront your deepest fears." Clara stepped forward, her voice trembling slightly. "And if we can't? What if we're trapped forever?" "Then your souls will join those of so many others who came here and never left," he replied, his tone dark, making my heart race. "But what do we need to do?" Edward asked, a mixture of frustration and hope in his voice. "You must revisit the dark moments of your past. Face your fears and your truths. Only then can you be free," the receptionist explained, his expression serious. His words resonated in my mind, and I couldn't help but think of the mistakes I had made, the decisions that haunted me. A heavy silence fell over us as we contemplated what this meant. Edward looked at me, his gaze filled with empathy. "If that's what we need to do, then let's do it together," I said, feeling a new determination bloom. "We won't let ourselves be defeated." Clara nodded, courage manifesting in her expression. "We're in this together, no matter what we have to face." The receptionist smiled, almost as if he were pleased with our resolve. "Very well, then prepare yourselves for the journey. The past is not something you can ignore. It always finds a way to return." In an instant, the reality around us began to blur. The walls of the hotel seemed to fade away, and suddenly, the three of us found ourselves in a different space. It was a familiar scene, but distorted, a version of our pasts where mistakes and choices materialized before us. I was in a dark room, the dim light illuminating a table full of objects that were familiar yet evoked pain. My heart sank as I recognized photos and letters I had tried to bury. "No, I can't face this," I shouted, but an invisible force held me back from fleeing. Edward and Clara were by my side, each fighting their own battles. "You have to do this, Clara," Edward shouted, his own struggle echoing in his words. "Face what you fear. Please, don't leave me alone," Clara cried, as shadows from her past danced around her, trying to drag her into darkness. "We're in this together, Clara. You can do it." I encouraged, though my own internal battle consumed me. As we confronted our fears, I realized that the receptionist was not just a guardian but a connection to those who had suffered. He was the manifestation of everything the hotel had consumed over the years. A lost soul seeking redemption. With renewed courage, I turned to my companions. "Let's face this together. It's the only way to break this curse." And so, amid pain and despair, we began to unravel the truth about ourselves, our struggle for survival transforming into a quest for liberation. The cycle could be broken, but only if we had the courage to confront the shadows that haunted us.